He was just a child, quiet, polite, and hungry. All he wanted was a slice of pie. But when he walked into that diner, everything changed. The laughter stopped. The stares began. And then, one man, too proud, too cruel, raised his hand and struck him. The boy didn't cry. He just looked up, eyes cold and calm, as if he knew something no one else did. Because the man who'd just hit him had no idea who was about to walk through that door. It was a calm Sunday morning in a quiet southern town, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's routines. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through Miller's Diner, a small roadside cafe with red booths and the sound of an old jukebox humming softly in the corner. Inside sat Jordan, a 7-year-old boy, with bright, curious eyes and a heart as pure as sunlight. His mother worked 2 jobs, but this morning she had promised him pancakes, a rare treat, a moment of peace. Jordan loved simple things, the syrup dripping slowly onto his plate, the way the waitress smiled when she called him sweetheart. To him, this diner wasn't just a restaurant. It was a little world where life felt normal, where he could dream beyond the struggles that shadowed his family. And in BUT, beyond that innocent joy, there were eyes watching. A man by the counter, tall, broad-shouldered, and bitter, narrowed his gaze. To him, that child's laughter didn't belong here. He gripped his cup tighter, his knuckles pale with unspoken hate. Jordan didn't notice. He was too busy telling his mom about his favorite cartoon, his voice soft and full of life. But the air in the diner began to shift. Whispers, glances, tension you could almost taste. And then the man stood up. His boots echoed against the tiled floor as he turned toward the little boy's table. Jordan's mother froze. The music faded. What happened next would silence the diner and the town forever. The man's boots stopped right beside the table. His name was Carl, a local troublemaker, drunk most nights, angry every day. He looked down at Jordan with a smirk that carried generations of bitterness. "Didn't know they let your kind eat here," he said, his voice low and poisonous. NNTHE diner fell silent. Forks hovered in midair, and the air grew heavy, thick with fear and shame. The waitress stepped back, pretending to clean the counter. No one wanted to get involved. Jordan's mother, Monica, gripped her son's hand under the table, her voice trembling but calm. "Sir, please, we're just having breakfast." Carl leaned closer, the smell of alcohol mixed with hatred. "Breakfast?" he sneered. "Not in my town." And before anyone could react, smack! The sound cracked through the diner like thunder. Jordan's head jerked to the side. The slap echoed. For a moment, everything froze. The music, the chatter, the world. Monica gasped, her eyes filling with tears, but Jordan didn't cry. He looked up slowly, his tiny hand pressed against his cheek. His eyes were steady, cold, and strangely fearless. Carl grinned, satisfied, turning to the others. "See? That's how you teach respect." Laughter, nervous, broken, rippled from a corner booth. The waitress whispered, "Stop it, Carl. Please." Monica's voice finally broke. "You have no idea what you've just done," she said softly, almost a whisper. Carl snorted, tossing a few coins on the counter. "Lady, I just taught your boy some manners." He pushed open the diner door, sunlight spilling in, pride in every step. But outside he stopped, because parked right at the curb was a black luxury sedan. The kind this small town rarely saw. NNTHE door opened slowly. Out stepped a man in a tailored gray suit, sunglasses hiding his eyes, every step measured and powerful. 2 men followed behind him, silent, watchful. The diner windows shook slightly as the car's engine idled, its deep growl filling the street. Inside, Monica stood, trembling. She knew that sound, that car. Her husband was here. And Carl squinted through the glare. "Who's that?" he muttered. But before he could move, the suited man's gaze turned toward him. Cold, piercing, deliberate. And everyone inside the diner felt it. The weight of that stare. The sudden shift in the air. Jordan slid out of the booth and ran to the door, his little voice cutting through the silence. "Daddy." Every head turned. Carl's face drained of color. The suited man, Mr. Harris, stopped, his jaw tightening as he looked down at his son's red, swollen cheek. His hands curled into fists, but his voice was calm, deadly calm. "What happened here?" NN01 answered. No one dared to. Carl tried to laugh it off, his voice shaking. "Just a misunderstanding, sir." Kid was NNMR. Harris took one slow step forward, and in that moment, every person in that diner knew justice was about to arrive, and it wouldn't be gentle. Mr. Harris stepped into the diner, every click of his shoes echoing like a countdown. The sunlight followed him in, but somehow the room felt darker. Every eye was on him, every breath held. The waitress froze mid-step, her tray trembling in her hands. NHE didn't speak right away. He looked first at his son, Jordan, still standing by the door, his cheek red, eyes glistening but proud. Then his gaze shifted to Carl. That single look carried the weight of something primal, the quiet rage of a man who had spent his life controlling chaos, only to see it touch what he loved most, and Carl tried to steady his voice. "Hey, listen, I didn't mean nothing by it. The kid, he was just..." NNMR Harris raised his hand. Silence fell again. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, calm, too calm. "Did you hit him?" Carl swallowed hard. "It was a misunderstanding." NNMR. Harris took another step closer. "Answer the question." Carl's mouth opened, but no words came. Sweat rolled down his temple, and outside, the sound of car doors opening again broke the stillness. Two men in dark suits stepped in, his men, faces stone cold, eyes scanning the room. The entire diner seemed to shrink. Even the jukebox stopped humming. NNMR. Harris knelt beside his son, gently touching the bruise on his cheek. "Did he do this?" he asked softly. Jordan nodded. NNMR. Harris stood up slowly. He looked at Carl, not with rage, but with something colder. "You should have kept your hands to yourself." Carl backed away, bumping into the counter. "I swear, I didn't." NNBUT. Mr. Harris wasn't listening. He turned to his men, gave a single nod, and walked toward the door with his son's hand in his. Behind him, chairs scraped, footsteps shifted, and fear filled every corner. NNN01 ever saw what happened outside that diner. But one thing was certain. By the time Mr. Harris drove away, the man who'd slapped a child would never raise his hand again. By the time the police arrived, the diner was quiet again. Too quiet. The smell of spilled coffee lingered in the air, mixed with the metallic scent of fear. Outside, the black sedan was gone. Only tire marks remained on the sun-faded street, curling like a signature of something unspoken. Jordan sat on the porch steps of their home that evening, his small fingers tracing the wooden rail. The world felt different now. He wasn't crying. Not anymore. He just looked out toward the horizon, where the sun melted into gold, and whispered to himself, "It's over." But deep down, he knew it wasn't. Not really. NNMR. Harris stood behind him, silent. The power, the authority, all of it meant nothing when it came to his son's pain. He had built an empire of fear, but in that diner, he'd seen the one thing even power couldn't erase. Hate. Cold, quiet, generational hate. In NFOR days, no one in town spoke about what happened. The diner reopened, but the laughter never returned the same way. Some called it justice. Others called it revenge. But the truth was heavier than both. Jordan grew up remembering that slap, not for the pain it caused, but for the lesson it carried. He learned that silence can be just as cruel as words, and that evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes, it smiles from across the counter. And for every Jordan in the world, there are thousands more, children, men, and women, who walk into rooms that weren't built for them, hoping only to be seen as human, because racism isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's whispered. Sometimes, it's ignored. And until we stop pretending not to hear it, stories like Jordan's will never truly end. And in SO, the question remains, how many more lessons will it take before humanity finally learns to listen?